How do you create a personalized learning system to support neurodivergent students? The more I research our guests today, the more I realize that this is not something that just a platform can fix. But the blend of providing the right platform, the right tools, and supporting local governments, schools in policy making could be just what tips the balance. And this in this episode, we'll talk to someone who is passionate about doing just that. Andre Skepple is the visionary founder and CEO of Fullspektrum, changemakers in education, health, and social care for all people experiencing hurdles within the learning and development. As a young and rapidly evolving tech startup company, they are truly dedicated to delivering better value, improved outcomes, and social impacts to localized education and integrated care ecosystems throughout the country and beyond, particularly supporting neurodivergent learners that have been identified with special educational needs. Welcome to the Mary Poppins of Startup Live show. I'm Naily Makangu from Athena Leaders. As a tech consultant and startup advisor, I will answer live the burning question that you have on your way to Series A+. Subscribe and tune in every week for top tips and to meet amazing guests like Andre. More importantly, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Andre, welcome on the show. I'm really, really excited about having you today. This is something that we've been planning for a while, and it's finally here. So before we dive in and talk about this amazing platform that you are making, and not just that, but how you are really impacting the change and the digital transformation in the education system, can you tell us a little bit about Full Spectrum?
So firstly, thank you for the opportunity, Naily, to be in this amazing podcast and to get to talk to you for a little bit in terms of what we do and how we're looking to change the world, particularly for children and young people. So Full Spectrum is a company that I founded born from personal frustration of my own experiences through the curriculum as a child who basically did well in primary school, did fairly well in secondary school. I was actually expected or was forecasted to go and study medicine at a top university. And then when I entered into one of the top sixth form colleges in South London, because the environments weren't adjusted to my needs and to all those characteristics that weren't identified at that point, I basically failed in all but one of my A-levels, and therefore the bright future I had in going and studying medicine and potentially being a surgeon or a doctor had to go for a very, very hard pivot. And therefore the struggles of actually trying to get an education became profound until when I eventually got into university, was identified as having severe dyspraxia and partial dyslexia. I think when I was 21. It took 5 years to get to that point, the assessment. And then what came to me is that it took me 5 years and many, many additional years of living through, these experiences of education, having these hurdles that were becoming more and more unsurmountable. How many other young children, young people out there that exist who've had a very similar experience to me? How many of them have identified being neurodivergent? How many of them have not been identified? And also, how many of them had a misdiagnosis? How equipped is the curriculum to support the diverging or the growing, unfolding personalities and backgrounds and cultures and ways of thinking to actually really bridge the gaps in true innovation and leadership that we're currently missing, particularly in the UK? So that is what the background Full Spectrum is. I said, I could solve this issue from the ground up, but you know what? Let's be a bit more ambitious. Let's be a bit more strategic, and let's actually build tech that actually can personalize the way that education, health, and social care is actually accessible, inclusive, sustainable, and also manageable for children and people who are not defined.
Yeah. Do you know why it took them 5 years? Because, as you said, it's 5 years makes a difference in the lives of many people, especially at the critical stage of their development, not just, in terms of learning and profession, but also personal beliefs and understanding about themselves and joining society as an adult. Do you know why it takes so long to be able to really understand what are the needs that someone have and provide a solution?
Well, actually, to be honest with you, 5 years is me being quite diplomatic in terms of the time span, because in effect, it was 5 years from the point where I realized, despite me trying, I'm still failing. This doesn't make any sense. You can actually say it was 21 years in the making, because I'm a child who started walking and talking quite late. I think I suddenly started walking and talking when I was like 2 years old. And because of my late development, I was actually in a special needs nursery. And it's during like the early 90s, late 80s, where dyspraxia and neurodivergence wasn't even a thought process, wasn't even a science back then. You know, it was just slow children, disabled children, so on and so forth. And it's very politically incorrect, that kind of demographics to children who were known to be neurodivergent in the future. And effectively, my whole experience in education was masked because I was in an environment that supported, in the supplementary school environment, especially for Black children, that actually supported a much more holistic and immersive type of learning. But that only was until I was 16. So the issue that I feel that it's taken a long time, and the situations within the sector that we're going to have a deeper dive in this conversation is that, and it's not just my words, it's not just from our research, this is what the government have actually declared. The frameworks and systems regarding special educational needs is disjointed. It's highly bureaucratic. It is a postcode lottery. So if you're in a local authority that have the resources and facilities to equip more, equitable, more accessible, more means fit elements of education, health, and social care support, then you're good. But most of the local authorities don't have that, and it's very inconsistent. This is because education, health, and social care agencies in the public sector in particular, but also higher rising with the private sector, is very, very just too siloed, too fragmented. It's not integrated. There's no single point of truth that can actually enable lead professionals to say, we know this child has an issue, we know this child has a particular need that requires a different way of supporting and intervening their learning and development. Let's work with them. But also, this is a sector that is highly stressed, high overworked, and severely underpaid. They do not have the bandwidth enough to support, and therefore, despite their passions and the focus to make change for young people, the sector, the government itself, are not supporting them. They're about to announce cuts in the sector. They're about to devastate how the sector is currently using finances to solve the problem, where it's not actually a financial issue. It's all about the intelligence. It's all about the strategy. It's all about the personalization and adaptability that's required to suit those unfolding needs.
Yeah. And on top of all of that as well is, how do you, even if he's saying, even if there was a potential solution that can be implemented on one school, do we have the tools that we need to actually implement that across the board, especially if we currently having all the cuts and all of the issues that we currently have in the government? No, you talked a bit about this idea of personal learning. This could be something that could make a big difference when it comes to supporting neurodivergent students. Do you want to explain to the audience, those who haven't spent as much time as me stalking you on social media to find out more about your concept around personalized learning?
So let me give a bit of a history in terms of our concept of personalized learning, because there are a number of specialists in pedagogy and in applied psychology that have been talking about personalized learning, personalized education for probably the last 15 to 20 years. And you may have seen some solutions or some systems or some concepts that look at personalized learning as you have a system and you have content, and the more you engage with content, the more it's able to essentially advise you or support you based on those interactions. But I say that's not enough. And there are systems out there that I won't name that actually position their personalization literally just based on just very monolithic engagement to the learner, not holistic engagement. So our approach to personalized education, personalized learning, actually comes from my background. So I used to be a scientist. I used to work in research. And then when I completed my master's, and therefore kind of like took my research career to a point where I then worked into the commercial element, I then started working in sales and business development, working with biotech companies, large pharmaceutical companies, research institutes. I used to work with companies like the GSKs and the Pfizers and the Biogens, AstraZeneca's, universities like Oxford and Cambridge and UCL, Stanford, MIT. I can go name. I worked with all the world-class institutions, Karolinska Institute. And in all the work I used to do during my time when I used to be in business development and consult them in regards to using reagents and certain elements of science to build platforms that could personalize medicine, our approach is to say personalization must be driven by data, and not just data based on a single snapshot of the needs of the attributes of an individual. It needs to be a continuous capture of information. I use the term, the metaphor of, it's like the difference of having a Polaroid camera that takes a single snapshot compared to having an 8K ultra HD 3D camcorder that can record information for a whole thing. Essentially, you get more information from moving image in maximum definition from multiple angles compared to a single snapshot. And I think when you look at personalization of anything, the personalization itself must look at the out-of-the-box elements. It must look at the elements regarding the cognitive psychology of the individual. It needs to look at elements of the personal engagement of the individual to the support worker, to the lead professional, to the teacher, to the environment. And it also needs to look at in terms of how those extrinsic factors, or the intrinsic factors, have that mutual communication, that mutual relationship, and how things can change dynamically due to factors that are either within the learner's control or in most cases out of learner's control. So with all those type of holistic, what we call omni-channel elements of service management, this is not possible or practical for an education specialist, for a head teacher or a head of year, for a caseworker, or any type of human to do it. This is where systems, AI, machine learning, which are adept in developing these types of processes in all sectors across in the public and private sectors itself, but not in education and not in integrated health and care. So this is where our mechanism of personalized learning support, personalized curriculum, personalized education is multifaceted, and it is driven by data, artificial intelligence, and machine learning from a holistic and unfolding perspective.
Brilliant. That's very exhaustive. And how is that? Because you talk about taking a snapshot just from data from different perspectives, but what about helping a young person, for example, from the point where they identify that they might need some special need and a special curriculum, all the way to entering the workforce? Because that's another thing that now we talk a lot about neurodivergent at school and also at work, yet the support sometimes like the school, but I can also see that in the workplace, sometimes there's not enough adequate support because most people might not understand what needs to happen. So is there something that you're also thinking about in Fullspektrum in terms of that support?
We're not just thinking about it, we're about to do it. Essentially, what we are doing now, and then I think for those that are listening that come from an investment background, this is a direct message for you guys, because I know that a lot of people that have been looking at Fullspektrum as an investment opportunity see the risks and concerns of us kind of focusing our market to local government, to national government education as being kind of an area of this thing's going to happen. We're now looking at expanding our model to corporate. And so what we want is the platform that we're developing, and we've now got an alpha build that has been developed, is effectively say, right, the same technology that can be positioned for local government, for schools and one-county trusts, for essentially the K-12 curriculum, can also be retrofitted in 16 plus over 25 corporate SMEs. Effectively, how we can use this as a way to bring proper diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace based on the neurodivergence of those that need that tailored support to maximize the potential and the value add to any organization. And therefore, the FS1 platform that we're developing is essentially going to be a lifelong tool. Think about a piece of code that is taken at the earliest point in a child's education journey. So it could be when they're 5 years old, 7 years old, 10, 11, or whatever. And at any point that they enter into the journey, if they have a special educational need, or ideally, in terms of the current build, if they have an education, health and care plan, which is a statutory document that is submitted by the government to ensure that they've got the right funding and support that's tailored to fulfill the outcomes based on educational achievement. So if you think of a child from that point on that's actually into our system, and these digital EHC plans that are then evolve into digital profiles have an algorithm that is learning how they learn, that's learning about the right interventions, the right processes, the right objective inputs from various different stakeholders in the ecosystem and in their curriculum, but also the challenges and how our challenges can be overcome through co-production and through collaboration. If you've got this algorithm that is continuously evolving throughout the entire curriculum journey, And then that whole preparing into adulthood, where they go into the next phase of their lives in sixth form education, in further education in colleges, in universities, or going straight into work, straight into corporate. This is essentially a piece of code that is the digital fingerprint that makes them them, but also contains all the necessary requirements of the cognition, the efficacies of learning and development, the value add, the root potential, but also the prescription of how to unlock it. This is essentially what we want to build and what we are building, and now we're entering into essentially all associated markets that there is a direct value add to attain from this.
In fact, as you are describing that, it's kind of taking the concepts of personality types and human behavior quiz that people provide these days, because I mean everything DISC certified professional, and this is just to help people understand and how to work well as a team. Now with Fullspektrum, you kind of go way beyond that. You add another layer that's even more powerful because, as you said, is you understand a young person all the way through the moment they enter the industry and they're still on the platform. Say again, the system understands from them and beyond. And I believe that this can be a powerful tool for the future as we talk a lot about what can we do to bridge the gap and become more inclusive for the next generation coming to work with apprenticeship and to deal with the shortage of labor in so many different industries. And I believe that Fullspektrum is definitely on the way there to really make a big difference.
Absolutely. This is our vision. Our vision is full scale disruption, but do it in increments, because effectively what we want to achieve, the world ain't ready for it yet. They're not. And this is so our approach and how our roadmap is developed in phases is to say we need to take achievable, addressable issues that are prioritized to multiple spectators and stakeholders within our markets and associated markets and say, right, we're going to solve the most critical issues with this solution. Whilst we are solving these issues and creating and generating value, we need to co-develop this solution and evolve it based on more issues that you're going to overcome. So this is why the actual platform, it took about 2.5 years of just solid market research and development before we even cut any single line of code. And that is where what we've got at the moment as an alpha that we've demonstrated to school head teachers, to multi-academy trusts, to local authorities and the caseworkers and civil servants that work in there. And now we've had conversations with the Department of Education, and unilaterally, they have confirmed that what we've got has achieved that product market fit based on the current issues that have been addressed. Now, we know that there's a deeper road to come, and we are not in a position to innovate to parts where the world aren't realizing the issues, but we're aware of it. We've got a complete library of that. So our approach, and the approach that is going to work, an approach that those in administration have not yet figured out, because they said it to us. They've told us straight, like, you've got something that not only is alignment to imminent policy changes from the 7 Review Green Paper that was published in April, but also what you've got is quite literally the only type of solution that exists that can solve this issue, and a plethora of other ones sandwiched that are yet to be discovered. So we have to do one thing, and to make a very, very critical call of action. Remember that saying, and it's a traditional saying, especially in African culture, it takes a village to raise a child. We've forgotten this. We've forgotten that principle. And this is the reasons why the issues regarding society started from education, and the fact that we've got so much chaos and acrimony in regards to young people and the types of lifestyles that they're living that pertain a much more destabilized environment. It's because they're disengaged from education. Why? Because we're not the village that raised the child. So we're taking that traditional concept and taking 21st century and empowering it with cloud computing, AI, and Internet of Things. That is essentially what the Fullspektrum, or the FS1 platform, is going to achieve, and it's going to unfold and evolve over the coming years.
I don't know if anybody is watching this. You are having the chills as I am, because I really can see your passion, and I really can see the beauty within the platform that you are developing. But in addition to that, I was grinning as you were kind of explaining where you are at the moment. because I believe that the approach that you took to develop Fullspektrum is definitely highly commendable, especially someone who works a lot with startups to help them build their products. I spent so much time trying to get them to understand the market, to understand what they want to do before writing a single line of code. And my headaches come where the code has already been written and I have to kind of retrofit and go like, okay, maybe this wasn't what we were meant to do. But I'm glad to see that that you've done that all the way from the idea, developing, having a platform, and now you also have investors and other interesting parties knocking on your door. And more on that, because I want to touch on just the continuation. Now that you do have this validation, this product market fit, I believe that there is an exciting pilot that you are working on. But before we go on to that, I've seen a lot of people have been joining all the way through. So this is a fantastic episode. If you have missed this discussion on personalized learning, Fullspektrum, and the impact in local schools and beyond, even in the corporate world as well, please do go back and watch the episode. It will be on our YouTube channel for forever. And if you do have any question, anything that you want to share from Andre, please put in the chat. And we've got hello to Amy that's just joined us as well. So let's going back to just to obviously Fullspektrum. You're now at a point where it's really exciting, and I've seen as well some of the marketing videos that you put out on the platform, which is out again. I will highly encourage other people to go and look into that to really understand how you are connecting the dots from the students, the teachers, the government, now the corporate world as well. Can you please tell us a little bit more about this exciting pilot that's coming up and how you are really thinking about launching one of the largest digital transformation in the country, especially in the education sector?
Absolutely. So I'm going to give a bit of context in terms of why we're doing all about to do, and kind of really engage those that are listening and those that will be watching as a recording in terms of why we're doing this in this approach. The conversations we've had with the Department of Education basically state, as I mentioned before, what we've developed is in alignment to imminent policy changes that have been mandated in the Senate Review Green Paper that the Department of Education published in April 2022. Now, during the summer of that element, they have been consulting with the public, but also commissioned a wide-scale project with 2 consulting firms where they'll be assessing 55 councils across England in regards to what types of issues do they experience, and therefore what types of solutions would deliver better value and send. Now, from what we know, that implementation strategy is not yet formulated, but we also know that there's significant budgets that have been positioned for wide-scale implementation of solutions that are shown to deliver better value. It's not based on cutting costs. That's not our approach. Our approach is to optimize costs, but at the same time, improve outcomes. We are not in a position to implement this solution at scale until we work with schools, multi-academy trusts, colleges, local authorities, critical groups across the NHS, and also the private sector to actually show the Department of Education, powers that be, that we're not going to wait for them to come up with solutions that can improve the lives of those not left behind, because essentially their administrations and their policies have also caused this mess. We're going to take it upon ourselves and we're going to blaze that trail to demonstrate the true potential of how digital technologies can deliver better value, but also improve outcomes and address that social mobility gap that we all know exists. So with the alpha that's now been developed, from January, we are now asking for at least 7 multi-academy trusts and school organizations, at least 3 college groups, and up to 7 local authorities, and also additional charities, registered care homes, those that make up the ecosystems that are depicted in this conversation. We want to work with you in our phase 1 trials to demonstrate how our system works, to take on your data. So predominantly, if you've got paper-based education health and care plans, school reports, clinical reports, all the things there, to ingest, to digitize that from its paper-based and very disjointed and inconsistent format into a uniform standardized format as dashboards, as continuous flows of information and documents, but also that multi-agency, multi-system integration that we've got prepared. We are requesting the education, health, and social care markets and communities to come join our journey in actually proving the concept of our platform. And what we want to do, and with the conversations, the dialogue that we've opened up, is to go to the Department of Education, go to the government and say, we've done it. Not only have we built it, we've proven it to work, and this is how it's evolving. This is the single point of truth that everyone, including you, need to have. This is the solution. Let's get on. That is essentially the Fullspektrum project, phase 1, starting January. Please get in contact with me, those who are interested. There is pots and grants of funding that will fund it. We can work with you to fund these projects to get involved. We're ready to go.
If you're listening to this and you know a school, a local authority, anyone interested who can connect Andre or work directly with Andre, please do get in touch with us directly or find Andre's social media. We'll post all the information that you need to find Fullspektrum in the show notes. And I will personally be watching this, as I think it's really an exciting space. Time for change is now, and I believe that Andre, you are doing an amazing job. And in fact, I'm not the only one. There's this nice comment that came in. I'm just going to read it out from Naomi Rose. Wow, I'm so inspired by this conversation. Andre, you talk with so much passion. I wish there was something like Fullspektrum around when I was at school. Yes, and there's another one from Yvonne. Well done, Andre. Definitely, there's a lot of us cheering you on, and we will, as well as Athena Leaders and anyone that follows me, I'm definitely going to also be pushing that to the local schools around Cambridge, where I'm from, and also beyond, because I believe that, yes, we really need to support a great initiative like Fullspektrum, Andre, and the amazing team that you have.
Thank you. And I'll say this with no ego, we're just getting started. This is just the beginning. There's a lot more to come. I've already given you a snippet in terms of what we've got lined up, but it's going to be an exciting journey that we want the world to be a part of.
Gosh, yes, I can't wait, especially coming from someone in the corporate world. And then I can see I'm really passionate about what the future is going to bring in terms of diversity, inclusion, leadership, the new form of leadership that get us to treat each other as human rather than just a employee number. So I believe that Fullspektrum will play a big part of that as well in the future. Now, just
Absolutely.
before we go off, I think, we've heard so much about what you're currently working on, and I selfishly don't want to go before I find out a little bit about you, Andre, because you are very, exceptional, especially when you talk about entrepreneurship having different forms, and you don't always need an MBA, you don't always need to come from a business school. Your own personal journey has been very varied. Do you want to really summarize very quickly for us so that other people can have a flavor of you and how you started to get to where you are today?
So my journey has been quite colourful getting into entrepreneurship. I never actually envisioned myself as being an entrepreneur because it was always that preconceived notion that you need an MBA and so forth. I mean, I did business studies in GCSE and I got a D. Go figure. But anyway, for me, my route to entrepreneurship comes from my ability as being someone that's neurodivergent to solve problems. That's what I've been doing since I was 4 years old, solving problems, just figuring stuff out and making it work. And I think people need to understand that those who want to get into entrepreneurship, it's not about making money. It's not about being the Elon Musks or the Bill Gates or anyone of a substantial type of, profile that represents what entrepreneurship is. The definition of entrepreneurship is solving problems. And you can solve problems and turn them into businesses, turn them into enterprises that have perceived value, which we can monetize. For me, my route to entrepreneurship has been making a lot of mistakes, figuring it out, and proceeding each time and bettering myself each time. That is pretty much the backdrop of my whole journey. This is someone that's coming from science, from biotechnology, into leading a tech company. That at some point will have biotechnology involved. I just think a little bit of stuffing, a little bit of snippet in terms of where Fullspektrum, the vision is going to evolve to. But effectively, there's nothing wrong with effing up as long as you learn how you proceed with it. And for me, that's the story of my life. I started up Fullspektrum by I got sacked from my job because I got disengaged. I thought, I don't see a future in this. I no longer feel engaged in this. I got a little bit of severance pay. I used that to bootstrap the first 3 months of actually doing this full time. I built a team, and then here we are now. We've raised in total about £712,000 of funding. About about half of it was from investment. The rest is from Innovate UK Smart Grant. We're now raising a seed round of about £1.5 million. Not a single penny from venture capital. And quite literally, and those that are listening that come from venture capital backgrounds, this might not be a company for venture capital, but this is an exposed opportunity that you want to get involved with. And as a Black entrepreneur as well, there are additional hurdles that we need to overcome to work 6 times as hard to keep parity to our peers from other backgrounds and cultures. So because of that type of experience and that type of, weathered, first-hand journeys that I had to go through, this is why I'm very diligent to how this company. And also, I speak to other founders, speak to people all the time, and I even charge them because I just want them to win, particularly in our community. We need to win. We need to have an economy that brings us forward. And I'm just building Fullspektrum as being one of those companies that actually we can say, right, someone that looks like us can actually be the Elon Musk and be the Bill Gates and be the Steve Jobs and everything like that, because we're solving real problems that affect not just the people around us, but the entire makeup of society as it is today, tomorrow, and beyond.
And I can see that this passion, this fire is what gets you out of bed every day and keep going.
Oh yeah, I'd be completely mad if I didn't do what I used to do. If you knew half of the hurdles I have to overcome personally, professionally, it's not for the faint-hearted. So you've got to, if you're going to start up a business, if you're going to really start to, disrupt things, be passionate about it. Be something that is part of your makeup that you can get out of bed every single day and say, why the hell am I doing this? At this times I've lost my home, I've lost my family, all these things and so on and so forth, because of how strenuous this industry is, this lifestyle is. So if you're going to put all that risk in one thing, you've got to bloody well sure that you're passionate about it and you can deliver. And if you can't, find a team. It is okay to identify the gaps in what you can deliver. Build a team, build people of like minds, and then you move.
Yeah. And what has been one of the toughest things that you've had to deal with whilst building Fullspektrum?
So just repeat the question again.
So what has been one of the toughest challenges? Because you've talked about, building a company, as we know, is not for the faint-hearted, let alone a startup in an innovative space. So is there any challenge that you can share with us as on your journey?
The biggest challenge, and I think this is kind of a nudge to those that watching come from an investment background. Again, you don't see people that look like me run a tech company. You don't see people like me in education leadership or in any type of applied science leadership itself. You don't see people like me that actually are in positions to solve quite quick problems at all levels of society. And also, you don't see people like me who come from institutions of wealth that can bootstrap and support financially companies like Fullspektrum that require quite a lot of upfront capital to build a solution. Like the biggest hurdle that I had to overcome, particularly when it comes to raising capital, is to get people to invest into my vision, our vision of just an idea. And it's not just because I haven't got the capability to develop on it, it's because this issue is so complex, so big. It is actually, essentially, it's a market that never existed before we got involved. We are the market. So how do you communicate this and get the right people involved that understand the issues, that understand the potential technology and understand the business opportunity that can engage them to actually invest money in? This is the reason why venture capital, it's been a joke, like trying to raise money from them. And I've been openly, I feel no way, and I'm unapologetic about this. I will hold everyone to account for those that don't bridge the equity gaps with regards to diversity and inclusion in providing funding to startups like mine, because effectively we got to work hard, and because of how hard and how dogged we are better entrepreneurs that can maximize your capital. So from that, the biggest challenge was fundraising, how to actually get the funding to take my idea into reality. And therefore, because of the structural and systemic issues regarding racism and socioeconomics and those things there that have caused society the way they are, how to break through all those barriers and to say, I'm doing something very different. You can bet on me. That's essentially it, really.
Yeah, wow. This is especially when last month I interviewed a lot of Black entrepreneurs, part of the Black History Month, and again, one of the biggest challenge fundraising was one of the biggest ones. As you said, there are the more people that kind of look like you, feels like you know the challenge that you are, the more opportunity that you have. And at the moment, we are not just there. So this is another problem that needs to be tackled. To have a lot more people get into the position where they can now happily invest in a diverse set of founders, so that great ideas can move forward quickly. But again, having said that, I'm very excited and happy to see that you're still here, as many other Black future founder or young people, by the time they finish school and want to set up their first idea, could maybe watch back on this episode. And I'm sure Fullspektrum will be way, way further ahead. And who knows, maybe the Bill Gates of this world.
That's the plan. That's the plan. And like I said, I want to be I want to be the flag bearer of those that look at us that you can do this. And I am not just Fullspektrum. I'm doing what I can across the community to try to bridge the EdTech gap that the system isn't addressing. We can't wait for people outside the community to solve this problem. We have to solve it. There's plenty of people. I mean, like I said, I've raised almost £750,000 for this company. Not a single penny has come from any institutional funds. And significant amounts of it from the private sector have come from people that look like me and you. We can do this. But you have to have the strategy, you have to have the focus and the passion for change in order to bring a community of people that can support you in this. So let Fullspektrum be that flagpole that initiates ethical change for people like us and young people who want to be tech leaders, who want to be the Bill Gates, the Elon Musk, the Bezos, all those that are out there exist that don't look like us. We can do it too. But we can only do it ourselves and do it together.
Indeed. Thanks, Andre, for this amazing conversation. Thanks again to our fantastic listeners. If you know anybody that works in school or who are even investors and people who are interested in Fullspektrum pilots, please do get in touch. We will be posting a little bit more about that on our social media, but you can also get all of the information in this episode and also in the show notes. Thanks, Andre, for your time. And for all of the founders out there and anyone working in startup, and for you, even whatever you are doing today, do remember, let's design a happy and productive workplace playground together.